Hey guys, it's Danny. Alrighty, today we're gonna discuss a little bit about fragrances. If you know me, you know I am a fragrance freak and I did try to collect as many fragrant orchids as I possibly could. And as it just so happens right now in my greenhouse, I have a whole bunch of fragrant orchids out in bloom. But regarding fragrance, this is a pretty finicky subject and it can vary a lot, as I've discovered along the years. Overall, the fragrance aspect of orchid growing is so variable. Now, I do have a video in which I talk a little bit more about what influences the fragrance of an orchid, so I will link you down below to that video, but today I'm going to present some of the orchids which will not have a spotlight. They're not necessarily the greatest blooms, they're recently acquired, and some orchids which kind of changed their fragrance along the time that I've had them, so I'd like to share with you a few thoughts on this whole fragrant orchids thing. Okay, so first off, the Iwanagaara Appleblossom, which you might have seen in this month's videos. She is absolutely my pride and joy this month. I have an 8-bloom display this month from her. It is the best display I ever had and the fragrance is really nice and strong. However, the fragrance this year is different from the previous 2 years. So I purchased this one in bloom. It had a fragrance and then it rebloomed. Yet again it was fragrant, and now of course it's filling up my greenhouse and I was about 2 meters away from it. I could feel her fragrance. But this year, unlike other years, I feel an undertone to this beautiful freesia-like fragrance. Now, I would describe the fragrance of the Iwanagaara Appleblossom as freesias indeed, but kind of mixed with apple blossoms actually. If not apple, then a fruit-bearing tree of some sorts, which blooms in the spring. But this time, the fragrance of this orchid reminds me of an old favorite of mine, the Cycnodes Wine Delight. So the overall fragrance, it is indeed floral and lovely, but it stings my nose this time like nothing else. And the underlayer is pretty much exactly like the Cycnodes Wine Delight. It is the first time that I feel this fragrance for her, and since the orchid is doing so well, it is healthy and it produced so many blooms, I suspect that she had a lot of energy to put into the fragrant oils. So I suspect that this year is the first time that I feel the full fragrance of this orchid, and I absolutely adore it. Not to mention the fragrance is much stronger than in previous years. So in this case, the overall health of the orchid played a major role. This underlayer just makes it so much more powerful though. Alrighty, now the orchid that confuses me the most at the moment, although you don't see it, is the Maxillaria tenuifolia. The bloom is starting to open. It's been like this for 2 days already. I'm not entirely sure if it's gonna open more. Now this is an orchid I received a month and a half ago or 2 months ago. It is still establishing. I do see new roots, but this orchid is not in full perfect condition. So I'm happy to see a flower, but right now this flower emits such a strong scent. Now, in case you don't know, the Maxillaria tenuifolia is the coconut orchid. It is a very famous orchid for her fragrance that reminds of coconuts. Well, it's not quite like that for me, so I'll attempt to describe the fragrance. It is coconutty, yes, but it's not what you expect, not that powdery coconut that we usually use in cookies. It smells like fresh coconuts to me. And I feel the fragrance from this distance. I'm 1 meter away actually. But it's not only coconut, and call me crazy, but I think I feel some peach fragrance in this as well. It is fruity and pretty mouth-watering. It's fresh, I do love it. But if I feel the fragrance of this orchid from a distance, it's roasted coconuts. I don't know if that makes any sense. It has a sort of fumey type of underlayer to it. So just imagine splitting open a coconut and then putting it on the grill, something of the sorts. And this is from a distance. If you get close to it, it's coconut and peaches. At least this is how I perceive it. Let me know down below if you feel the same thing. Hey, little birds, be quiet. Alrighty, so let me know in a comment down below if I'm very off or this is not the full fragrance of this orchid, considering she's still adjusting. So for now, this orchid fills an entire corner. This little tiny bloom. I really like it. I like fruity smells, but it's just so confusing because I cannot put my finger on the fragrance exactly. Roasted coconuts, but fresh coconuts mixed in with peaches. Does that make any sense? Another interesting fragrance comes from the Cattleya mossiae. When I did the presentation video for this orchid, the fragrance was not fully developed, but right afterwards, it kind of took full effect. And it is really pretty. It reminds me of lilies. Many Cattleyas and Cattleya hybrids do smell a little bit like lilies in my opinion. In any case, very floral, However, this one developed a, I would call it nasty trait. So it is smelling beautifully. It's not as strong as the Maxillaria tenuifolia, but you can definitely feel it when you stick your nose into the orchid. So the fragrance is lovely, but underneath all that loveliness, there is a pretty pungent smell. At least I perceive one. And I can only describe it as, maybe BO? Let's just say you had a really busy day, it was hot, you sweated a lot, and right before you go into the shower, you smell like that. A pretty lazy, pretty pungent smell. This is the underlayer this one has. Yet again, it might be due to the fact that this is the very first flower this orchid creates, but then again I cannot explain why I feel this underlayer because I've never felt anything like it in the whole Cattleya family. Usually Cattleyas have beautiful fragrances. They are pollinated by insects that do enjoy a nice fragrance, so it's not like she's trying to attract flies or anything, so I cannot really explain why I feel this underlayer. But yet again, if you guys have this orchid, let me know down below if it's just my case or if I'm just weird in feeling this fragrance. Because fragrance is indeed a personal thing. For example, the Phalaenopsis Liodoro, which I think most of us can agree is beautifully smelling. However, Rachel feels it like damp lemons. I don't know why. I cannot even describe the fragrance of the Liodoro as lemony, but there you go. It is a personal thing. And as much as I try to be accurate with the description of the fragrances, past memories and whatever my nose feels will obviously influence the description. But at least for my sanity, just let me know down below if you've ever felt this type of fragrance from this one. And speaking about the Liodoro, she's out in bloom at the moment as well, and it's really, really beautiful. It has a very strong fragrance, and I've discovered that along the years the fragrance really doesn't change. This is a new Liodoro, it's not my initial one, and the fragrance is pretty much the same as I remembered. However, what happened with this one when I purchased it was that it did not have any type of fragrance for 5 days. I don't think I've ever had this happen with any other orchid. Usually the fragrance kicks in the next day, let's say, or it doesn't show at all if the flower is on her way out. But this one took about 5 days to release her fragrance. Alrighty, another orchid that is, I cannot believe it, I'm 3 meters away from the tenuifolia and I can still feel her fragrance. That is a pretty fragrant orchid. Alrighty, the Cycnodes bractensis. This is the second blooming this orchid produces, and it was a much better one than last year. I had only 2 flowers, and this year I have 5, so it is an improvement. The flowers are just not long lasting. That's my only beef with it. Now, last year I described the fragrance as gardenia. Some people on the internet described it as caramel. I don't see it. I don't see any type of connection. It might just be me. However, gardenias, yes. If you like the smell of gardenias, this comes very close to it. But just the other day I had the opportunity to smell a gardenia in full bloom. It was a much sweeter fragrance. It was a better fragrance than the Cycnodes, I have to say, sadly, because I love the smell of gardenias. But if you know, they have an underlayer of earthiness, in my opinion, which the Cycnodes has as well. That's why I'm comparing it to gardenias. This time the fragrance was a little bit more powerful than last year. Pretty much makes sense, and it was really, really nice. It's just that it's not exactly gardenias. It's not sweet at all, sadly. I would have liked it to be sweeter. I love sweet smells, but it's not. However, it wasn't unpleasant. But I can see how some people might not really enjoy the fragrance of this one. So if you are a fan of gardenias, this really comes close to it. If you're not, however, this is worse than gardenias. Stay away from this guy. But of course, there are always the old faithfuls that never change their fragrance no matter what, and these are the nobiles. I think you can always count on a nobile to deliver the fragrance. If it is a fragrant nobile, that is. There are some hybrids that are not all that fragrant, but if it's one of the very known fragrant hybrids, I've never encountered problems of changing fragrances or non-fragrant orchids. These guys just smell, they smell nice, and that's it. You can absolutely count on them to deliver. I can recommend the Akatsuki, smells a little bit like hyacinths, never changes its fragrance, never has a year without a fragrance, and of course the Apollon, Spring Dream Apollon, and the Angel Lissy, beautiful sweet fragrance, yet again, never changes. All of the ones that I find in stores smell absolutely identical. And of course the Aurora, which does not have blooms at the moment, yet again a very pretty fragrance that never changes. It's always there, and my boyfriend describes it as watermelony, which is nice if you like fruity fragrances. So at the moment, these are the orchids which produce the most fragrance in my greenhouse at the moment, but I do have also a few orchids that I don't enjoy the fragrance of. One of them has buds, so we'll see if this year anything changes. And to top it all off, I did it. I ordered myself a stinky orchid. It's a stinky bulbophyllum, which is supposed to arrive today, so I'll shoot an unboxing and probably one of the next days you're gonna see it. This is one of the orchids which I mentioned in my top 5 orchids that I will never purchase or something of the sort. You can check the video down below. If you missed it, it's an older video. I said I would never get a stinky bulbophyllum. But what I didn't know back then is that I would move to a different country and I will have a separate room in which I would grow orchids in. Because as I was saying, I love the flowers, they're beautiful, but I would not want a stinky bulbophyllum sitting in my house, you know what I mean? But right now, I can definitely grow them, so I broke the ice. I ordered myself one of the stinkiest bulbophyllums ever. You're just gonna have to wait and see what I ordered. So alrighty guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Hope you've enjoyed it. And speaking about fragrances, if you have an absolute all-time fragrance that you love, just let me know down below. I'm always on the lookout. And thank you for your suggestions. So if you've enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you hated it, give it a thumbs down. Subscribe to my channel for regular orchids and plants videos. And don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss a video. And with that said, I'll see you all next time. Bye! So I remember yesterday I was showing you the Victoria Reginae, which had a really nicely purple bud. Well, this morning it's kind of blue. The bud is opening up and the color completely changed. Let me try to give you a better look. Do you see how big the difference is between the color of the bud and the actual flower? Now, it's still not completely 100% blue. It's still kind of purple, but it's closer to blue than any other orchid I have seen. So this is exciting. To have a really almost blue orchid really is exciting.